First, let's launch the Settings app to peek under the hood of what the camera app can do. In Settings, let's scroll down to Camera and tap it. You'll see a list of camera settings. The first thing you'll notice is Formats. Let's tap into that. You get two options: High Efficiency and Most Compatible. High Efficiency helps keep your photo file sizes smaller. It's a great way to save storage space on your phone. The next option is Most Compatible. The file sizes of your photos and videos will be a little bigger, but they will also be more compatible with other computers and apps. This is the option I use. Pick the one that makes the most sense to you. If we go back, we can select Record Video. This is where you can choose the resolution and frame rate you want to shoot your videos in. It starts as low as 720p HD 30 frames per second and goes as high as 4K 60 frames per second. I like to set this to 4K 24 frames per second because Hollywood films are shot at 24 frames per second. It's cinematic looking. That being said, if you are shooting fast-moving objects or like to move your camera around quickly, 4K 60 frames per second may be a better option for you. I do suggest choosing 4K over 720p or 1080p HD if you want to record the highest quality video from this phone. 4K looks great on a large screen TV. The lower quality resolutions will look their best on smaller screens. Think about where you will be showing your videos when choosing one of these settings. Here's what 24 frames per second looks like. Here's what 60 frames per second looks like. The difference may be subtle to most people. Apple shows you on this screen how the different resolutions and frame rates affect file size. Something to keep in mind. The only downside of shooting 4K over 1080 or 720p HD is that you will go through storage space faster. If we scroll down, you will see the HDR video option. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. It records video that has more color and more information in the shadows and highlights of the image than non-HDR video. But to really see it, you'll need a Dolby Vision HDR device. You can see the difference on this iPhone. The image gets brighter, for example, and it's quite stunning when you view it with your own eyes. But if you plan on watching your videos on a non-HDR screen, you may want to turn this option off. Lock Camera. Because the camera has two lenses, you can switch between them when shooting video by zooming in and out with your fingers on the screen. However, when you do this, you will see a slight jump when the lenses switch. Lock Camera keeps the lenses from automatically switching while zooming, therefore you won't get the jump. The downside is that you can only use one lens at a time when zooming with your finger, which can be limiting. If we go back, we can tap Record Slow-Mo. This is where you set the frame rate of the slow motion video that you want to shoot. You can choose 1080p HD at 120 frames per second, 1080p at 240 frames per second high efficiency, or 720p HD at 240 frames per second. As you can see, it looks pretty good, even blown up to 4K. If we go back, you will see the Record Stereo Sound option. The phone has multiple microphones on it to record your audio in stereo. Here's what that sounds like. I'm recording an audio test. We are in stereo right now. I'm going to move myself around to see if we can hear the sound moving from one side to the next. I'm over on the left side of the phone. Now I'm over on the right side of the phone. Now I am in the middle of the phone. Here's what it sounds like when I turn Record Stereo off. Right now I'm on the left side of the phone, and this is what I sound like. Right now I am on the right side of the phone, and this is what it sounds like. Now I am right in the middle of the phone, and this is what it sounds like. Preserve settings is for preserving your camera settings rather than letting them automatically reset. That's helpful if you want to use your camera consistently the same way, like defaulting to video or photo mode. or preserving creative controls like always using the same filter, for example, or keeping exposure adjustment the same, or always leaving live photo on. It really depends on how you use your camera. I mainly leave these off and decide as I am shooting the settings I want to use. I don't mind changing them. You may have different needs. By the way, what is live photo? Basically, live photo records what happens 1.5 seconds before and after you take a picture. What you get is more than a still photo. It's a moment captured with movement and sound. To view a live photo, just hold your finger on the screen, and your picture comes to life. If we go back, you'll see Use Volume for Burst, which simply means that while the camera app is open, if you have this on, pressing the volume up button on the side of your camera will shoot a burst or multiple photos all at once. This is great for trying to capture the perfect moment when shooting something that is hard to predict or is fast moving. Scan QR codes is about scanning codes usually located on a product. For example, when I scan the Wikipedia QR code displayed on another phone, the iPhone 12 offers a link generated by the code to Wikipedia's website. If I click on it, I can go to their website. If you don't want your camera to scan a QR code when it sees one, turn this option off. Grid is next. I like to have the grid lines on. It divides your screen into thirds, but the lines are just for framing purposes. They don't actually record onto your image. The rule of thirds in photography basically says to put your subject off-center to create interesting framing. The grid lines help you with this off-center framing. Just place your subject on the lines or where they intersect. It's a guide. Next is mirror front camera. When you are taking a selfie photo, turning on mirror front camera simply means the image will appear as you see yourself in the mirror, instead of flipped as it usually is after the picture has been processed. The only downside to this is when you are wearing something with text on it. The text will appear backwards. You want to turn mirror front camera off in those situations. View outside the frame simply means that when you look at the screen before taking a photo, you get to see the extra parts of the image that you are framing out. The extra parts are darker. This reminds you other ways you could possibly frame your shot using different aspect settings or the other lens. I personally leave this off, but you may find it helpful. Scene detection. According to Apple, with scene detection, the camera intelligently detects what you are taking a photo of and applies a tailored look to bring out the best qualities in the scene. I generally prefer to manually control most aspects of my photography, so I usually turn it off. But when I do shoot with it on, it actually seems to do a good job. It seems to make subtle enhancements. You'll want to experiment with this setting. Prioritize faster shooting is next. When you are rapidly pressing the shutter button to get multiple shots, your phone may adjust quality settings to ensure that you are able to capture all of these images when this option is on. I tend to leave this setting on. I'd rather go lower quality than miss the shot due to image processing. Lens correction is next. I like to leave this on. When you use the ultra-wide lens, the edges of the frame may distort or curve a little bit. It can be unnatural looking, and this option fixes that. Smart HDR refers to taking photos. It's great for scenes that have too much contrast in them, when the darks are too dark or the brights are too bright. The iPhone intelligently blends the best parts of separate exposures into a single photo. This shot, for example, was very backlit. The front of the subject was dark in reality, but Smart HDR evened out the lighting. Well, I hope you learned something from this video. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.